Hey guys, welcome back to the R Squared Fantasy Football Podcast. We're back this week. It's a great Tuesday. We've got some news to go over. We're your hosts. I'm Ian. You can find me on Twitter at dynasty_IM.
I'm Akash. You can find me on Twitter at YZR_fantasy.
So let's transition into a really unique profile here. I'll let you start, but Amon-Ra St. Brown. And when I say unique, I say that because we talked before the show, and not to spoil, but Akash just came out with his comp sheets. The difference between his comp sheets and anyone else's is that he has Z-score, which for you guys don't know, Z-score basically tells you how actually similar those are. Right. So you guys have probably seen my ruse where we can get a range of outcomes with that player.
Yeah.
Akash has a part where you can see each player how actually close that player is. So, like, for example, my Rue for Amon-Ra St. Brown could have Stephon Diggs and Terry McLaurin on it, and they're both there. Whereas if we look at Akash's, his will say, like, Stephon Diggs has this Z-score. It's this close to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and McLaurin's this close. Sure, maybe they're both comps. This is just an example. Maybe they're both comps, but one is a closer comp than the other. So that's the cool thing with Akash's. And I said all this to set up that he's unique in the sense that Akash didn't have anyone really close to Amon-Ra St. Brown at all.
Are you going to let me talk about my own thing? Are you just going to spoil it all?
No, I'm just going to talk.
I want to preface by saying that the reason that I wanted to come out with something like this is because to try to identify like the differences between my comps and like Drew's comps and Ian's comps is that it just shows that, like, okay, this is a range of outcomes. Like, if you have 4 really good players and then 4 really bad players, we'll treat it as a 50-50 proposition to hit the floor versus the ceiling. Whereas, say, Laviska Shenault, for example, his closest comp is John Brown, and his second closest is Tavon Austin, and next is Cordero Patterson before we start to get to a few actually good players. And so looking at that, if I had known that last year, I might have been a little less bullish on him, but now I have him on. Now he's my most roster dynasty receiver, so there's no going back at this price. But that's just all to say that I think this will give us a lot better understanding of what to expect from a player, where if you look at their closer comps, you weight that more. And so Amon-Ra St. Brown, what Ian was starting to say is he has 0 day 3 wide receivers that are close to him. Like, the closest one is Tampa Bay Mike Williams, and that's not even a very close comp. And the next closest is Stephon Diggs. But if we don't filter for draft capital and we just look at all wide receivers drafted in their first year, the closest wide receivers in their first year to Amon-Ra St. Brown's rookie year are Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp, Elijah Moore, Devonta Smith, and AJ Green. And that's all to say that Amon-Ra St. Brown has really, really good rookie comps. And I think I'm going to start to buy into him a little bit more.
I'm in the same boat as Akash here, which my comps filtered in a lot of those same names that Akash was talking about. But also the thing that stands out with his ruse compared to just other ruse, I guess, is usually when you see the floor, so the ceiling and the floor doesn't have any production, and there's that risk that this player won't have production, but there's all this upside. The thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown's unique ruse, I would say, is that his floor is Chase Claypool, who, he wasn't very productive, but even he has a top 36 season or a wide receiver 3 season. Like, his whole roost, Stephon Diggs, Michael Thomas, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Colston, Bo, Jordan Matthews, McLaurin, Ayuk, Claypool. The thing is, it's hard to say that there's a guy on there besides maybe Claypool that wasn't a good fantasy wide receiver, wasn't good at football. And that's kind of the thing that Akash is pointing out too, is we don't 100% know what Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to turn into, what he's going to look like, what all that stuff's going to mean. Yeah. But what we do know is every comparison we're really getting, besides like that Mike Williams you talked about, has production. Like, there's so many productive comps that we're seeing that it seems like Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be someone who's like a high floor type guy, despite it seeming like he's not.
Right.
It's weird.
The draft capital would give you, I think, in my head that like low draft capital, or like not like bad draft capital, equals low floor because they could lose their jobs. And that's not to say that that is completely removed from Amon-Ra St. Brown's possibilities for his career outlook, because that's possible for a lot of players, like any player, because there's no guarantees in football. But all of his comps are really good. The closest comp, who I think is a miss, who isn't even that close of a comp, is Kelvin Benjamin, who missed his second year and then off the field issues completely derailed his career. And then if you go down, and then even Kelvin Benjamin,
I was gonna say we could add context to the Calvin Benjamin comp too, because the reason why Kelvin Benjamin shows up is because he was good.
He was good in his rookie season. That's right. Yeah. He was. And then the guys that Kelvin Benjamin sandwiched in between on similarity to Amon-Ra St. Brown's rookie season is CeeDee Lamb and Mike Evans, two guys who we also think are really, really good. And then if you keep going further, and as you go further, it's less similar, and so we have less confidence that their career outlooks are going to be similar. You have, I guess, Tampa Bay Mike Williams, who wasn't that productive after his rookie season, and then even after him is Stephon Diggs, who was a day 3 player like Tampa Bay Mike Williams, who was productive after his rookie season. And all this to say that Amon-Ra St. Brown has really good rookie season comps.
Yeah, and that's like he's just someone who seems really productive with it, or to us at least, just looking through. But I wanted to see, because I know this one thing that like has been brought up a lot, I should say. But one thing I wanted to see was who are the day 3 guys who put up a 78? Because we know Amon-Ra St. Brown put up an 80 PFF pass grade, which for those who don't know, PFF pass grade or receiving grade,
yeah,
is it's helpful in our process because it's predictive. It's not perfect, just like no metric's perfect, but it's a big part of my process, a piece of Akash's process. But anyways, so if you're knocking on him as day 3, like that he's drafted in round 4 instead of, where would like to see him, here's all the day 3 guys that put up a 78 plus PFF receiving grade. Stephon Diggs
is the minimum.
I don't have any route minimum on this, by the way. I should. It's just 8 games here. 8 games played your rookie year.
Let's hear it.
Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Doug Baldwin, Tyreek Hill, Marquez Colston, Antonio Brown, and J.J. Nelson. Now, I know J.J. Nelson and Tony Brown didn't have a ton of routes or anything like that.
Yeah, they had 57, 80 something.
Yeah, so they're low sample size kind of guys.
Eliminate them both because they don't hit the route minimum, and you're left with a list of all studs.
Yeah, the thing was you did a favor by eliminating J.J. Nelson because he's the only one here who doesn't have a top wide receiver 1 season. So
if you eliminate all the small sample traps, you're just left with studs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is lumped in with a bunch of studs there.
Yeah, and even if you take out the small sample, like you're taking out Antonio Brown, one of the best wide receivers of our generation. So like that's like everything we look at, everywhere we're looking with Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're just seeing production, and that's why we like him.
Simply put, the guys that are productive, we like.
It's funny because about 3/4 of the season, I had Amon-Ra St. Brown as someone who I'd be looking to sell at value, say, like to flip him for an Ayuk, flip him for Michael Thomas, which I still wouldn't dislike. I think those other guys might have safer floors possibly, but anyways, he was someone who I did. And then he finishes the season, and we get a look at like his season-long grades, which if you guys followed like during the season, one thing that Akash was talking about was wait till the end of the season when we could see the whole grades. Like we can take every single week and just have the largest sample size we can create. Yeah. And then we can take like our process guesses, our projections from there because we've built the biggest possible sample size we can. Well, when we finished compiling Amon-Ra St. Brown's, the target share had gone up. The PFF receiving grade had gone up. Like he'd only gotten better, which there's the narrative too that, the Swift and Hawkinson stopped playing and then he went off. That's when he started dominating these targets. Okay, well, then you're going to have to throw in the narrative. What about rookies get better as the year goes on? Because we saw that like with Brandon.
That's not a narrative. That's statistically true.
Yeah, that's statistically true. It's not
I think it was Jack Miller who showed that, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw it firsthand this year. I mean, maybe not Jamar Chase, who kind of just like was NFL ready week 1. Yeah. But like last year, Brandon Ayuk blows up the second half of the season, and there are people that's like, but Kittle and Debo were out decent amount of those games. And Brandon Ayuk didn't look great, but that's not why. Because we saw once he got out of the doghouse, Brandon Ayuk was a really good receiver.
Just returning to production, right?
Yeah, so
for Amon-Ra St. Brown, you still have to earn those targets and produce on them to show up well in these processes. And so if the only reason he produced was because there were no other good players on his team, then why aren't we seeing guys like Denzel Mims produce as rookies even with no players on his team to compete for targets? Or why aren't we seeing Marquez Callaway do it when there's no one on his team that he's competing with targets for? Like, the narratives don't work. Simply put, Amon-Ra St. Brown produced well and he earned his volume, and he has terrific comps.
Yeah, just basically production follows this guy, so he's probably going to be productive.
That's right.